Elevate Me is brought to you by Scotiabank, the Spring Mill Distillery, and Wellington Motors.
Had a few glitches today, but we're very, very happy to have on our very special guest, Dwayne DeRosario.
Mr. Shake and Bake himself, welcome.
Good afternoon, guys. How are you doing?
Excellent, excellent. How are you doing? How are you doing during this time of isolation and kid madness?
It's been an experience, but you know, I do have to say this. It's a regular day in the world of a Dero and a professional athlete. You know, you're home for long periods of the day. But of course, the challenging part, as you mentioned, is managing my kids, you know, and just controlling their snackage and them getting under each other's skin. So we found creative ways, and thankfully through their football clubs and schools have done a good job of keeping them engaged as much as possible.
Oh, that's good. You're gonna have to tell me some of those strategies, because I just have them lying on the floor face down until I tell them to get up. That's a bit of an exaggeration, but no, that's good. That's good.
I have a big belt.
Yes.
Old school.
Island styles.
Old school is a true school.
Hey, you're also doing. I caught one of your lives the other day. You're doing a live every day for kids. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I do every day. On my Instagram live, I do a Dero Fit, and pretty much it's just keeping kids active, keeping kids engaged, and you know, keeping kids away from excuses. I think a lot of kids are using this time as a holiday and not really feeling that they can you know, stay fit, stay you know, get a lot of touches on the ball. And I'm just showing them that you can still do a lot with a little. And regardless of what your living situation is, whether you have a basement, you're in an apartment, a condo, backyard, garage, wherever it is, you can still, you know, maintain a good level of fitness and get a good quality amount of touches on the ball per day. So I'm just showing them different drills they can use, and whatever they find they can apply to their daily life, then perfect.
And that's really how we develop. I mean, that's how I developed my skill. I was on touching the ball every single day, all the time, whether it was just in my backyard or against a wall. It was just about getting multiple touches on the ball. And that's where your skill comes from, right?
Exactly. I mean, you know, like you said, using a wall as your friend and treating the ball like your friend. This is a time where I think a lot of us are forced to make sacrifices, and you realize that you can't be you know, in public places or on the field knocking around the ball. So you have to be creative, and that requires you staying at home and getting, you know, figuring out ways where you can still be engaged and still, you know, pursuing your dream or whatever your passion is in terms of first in life in general, but especially as an aspiring young athlete.
Okay, were you always like, was soccer always your first love? Is that what you remember from when you were a kid?
Soccer was always my first love, but I always loved playing other sports. Basketball was definitely up there. I played a lot of basketball. I was playing on the provincial Ontario basketball team at the time. So I had to make obviously a decision when I was about 14, 15 years old and then I pursued soccer. But I played every sport. I played volleyball, loved track, played badminton, did every, you know, I was one of those kids that played every sport just to, you know, school was my thing. So I really took to sports.
And when was soccer kind of, I know you had a lot of early success. So first of all, who got you? Was your dad? I know your dad was a big part of your career. Was he the one that kind of got you into soccer?
Well, definitely, 100%. My dad played the game. Unfortunately, due to a few knee injuries, put him out from terms of maybe you know, playing for Blizzards. But you know, he definitely was very passionate about the sport. He was a huge connoisseur of just, you know, the rhythm, the playing with rhythm and the Brazilian way and playing with flair. And, you know, so he was my coach as well. And my older brothers played too. So obviously that younger brother syndrome of trying to prove that you're just as good, just as fast, just as strong as my older brother, they really kept me competitive and kept me grounded as well.
When did you know you were good? When did you know you were like, holy crap, I'm actually pretty darn good at this thing?
I probably have to say when I was 12, when a team from London, Ontario took me in or asked me to be a guest player, and they were playing in a tournament in London, England, in Swanage called the Canary Cup. And I would have to, they would pay for my way to travel up to London, and then they bought my airline, my dad, my brothers, my dad's girlfriend at the time, my aunt, her son. They took care of all of our travel to go to London to represent them. And I think at that time, I just kind of hit me and said, wow, I really have the potential to create, special moments. My family, the only thing we traveled to is maybe the States, 1 or 2 times, but we didn't have the finances to take these kind of trips, and go on nice vacations and stuff like that. So when I was able to provide that through my ability, I think that's when it hit me and said, wow, I really have something special. But I didn't take it as serious as, it's probably like 14, 15, maybe when I got cut from the provincial program at 15, that's when I started to really take my craft serious.
And now at that age, was the shake and bake alive yet? Did that come later?
No, the shake and bake was alive in the sense of the shake and bake. That phrase came from the Robbie tournament when our Malvern team played. I can't remember what team it was, and the article was we put a shake and bake on a team. By the quality of football we were playing was I guess people really was impressed by our side, and I just used that as I got older, and it just came across me, maybe about, say 19, 20. And then I said, you know what? I like that, because I wanted to really attribute to that, to a lot of the kids that I played with that through life circumstances, whatever the case was, had the same potential, maybe not the same drive, but had definitely a lot of skill. And if the proper resources were in place, they could have potentially, made a career out of this game. But I think it was my drive and my passion, and obviously attribute a lot to my parent, my father, and my brothers. My mom wasn't too big into sports; she was big into the education part. But they were definitely supportive of me on my football quest.
Okay, so you were cut at 15 from the provincial team?
Yeah, I was cut on the U17 World Cup team. I was 15 at the time, and because they said I was too small, so he said, Bob Monroe cut me from the provincial program, and I just remembered, him sitting me down and say, tell me that I have the world of skill and the world ability, but unfortunately I'm too small. Back then was, they were looking for the big kids, the kids that could, compete, because we played a lot of aerial ball at the time. And I think at that time was when really football was changing. Players were coming in that could play that had the flair, that wanted to play a different brand of football. And I think Bob had this in mind, that going into the World Cup, we're playing big, strong guys. So he was looking for those type of players.
Oh, I feel your pain on that one. I think I almost similar situations. I was told multiple times when I was younger that I'd never make it on a higher level team because I was too small. That fired me up. Did that fire you up? Like, are those motivation moments for you?
Well, that's what I said. That was probably the turning point where I decided to take football serious, because I said, okay, well, I remember going in the car, and right away I was like, Dad, I want to know when the next child is, because I want to come back. So during that time, I became one with the ball. I was training hard. I was running hills. I was, doing whatever I could to get, as strong as possible. So when I came back, I was giving them a product they couldn't refuse. So I was on a mission.
You're a big fan of the fundamentals, of down to basics, mastering the fundamentals. You want to talk to us a little bit about that?
Yeah, I think repetition is definitely very crucial, especially towards kids' development today. I think with all this information coming, all these fancy and creative drills, which I think is good, but I think in terms of fundamentals is very crucial to especially grassroots development, and mastering one craft before you move on. I think a lot of times in training, our coaching has become kind of like school, where it's like curriculum. and it's like, we got to get to here, but not every kid is able to process the information as everybody else. And then of course you have your kids that are much more advanced, that grasp things, that pick it up quickly. But then you have the kids that need that extra, going back and retouching on the basics. And I think one thing that we know, in order to get to the next level, I think first touch is everything. And first touch comes from repetition and understanding, the symmetry of the ball, understanding the different parts of the foot, understanding the weight of a pass, understanding, like, there's so much, I could get into depth with that, but just and that comes from just repetition and doing the basics, passing properly and and understanding, proper body posture and stuff like that when you're receiving and passing a ball.
Yeah, I remember, the thing that I always wanted to do was make sure my first touch was impeccable, because really at the end of the day, it's your first touch, that first 2 steps, and then you can deliver the ball. Doesn't matter how big or small you are, as long as you get that first touch out of your feet and you deliver. That was where I really, really worked hard. I think those fundamentals are so important. And I also think having fun, like, I think, when I think about growing up, and I know things have changed so much in the world, in the soccer world especially, and now you have all these high performance training centers, and I think back to my career, and I'm like, I would never have made it far, because I would have stayed where I was having fun, and and I think how important is that for kids to just continue to enjoy it, because if you don't enjoy it, you don't continue with it.
Yeah, and I think that's with anything in life. I think you have to have fun. You have to understand there's a balance between, having fun and competing. Having fun and learning, having fun and pushing yourself. You have to find joy in the hard work. You have to find fun in repetition. A lot of kids, like, and that's why a lot of coaches are forced, because the parents really dictate the training sessions today and dictate my kids just want to play, so they feel like they just got to get through the session just to get to we call the scrimmage, which I don't like that word, but I'd rather small-sided games, because scrimmage just sounds like it's just do whatever, right? But there's no point going into a small-sided game if kids can't even control the ball properly or pass properly. And don't get me wrong, all the kids want to play, but you have to create it as a fun and learning environment for the kids to find joy in, repetition of passing the ball back and forth. So you got to get creative with the sessions when you plan it. It always has to be fun, always has to be engaging. And yes, I wouldn't say you have to dwell on one thing for too long, but you can do various passing drills that are creative and fun, that kids could equally learn and have a good time while learning, right? But you definitely can't take fun out of the game at any level, and that's going right into the professional level. You have to have fun.
So then, did you bring that complete package back that next year after the hill sprints and the touches on the football? Did you impress them the next year?
Yeah, I think so, because after the U17, I missed it was U20, and before going into that, I got a call from Bob Lenarduzzi to represent the Canadian national team at the old varsity stadium. And at that time, we had various tournaments, like we had the Caribbean Cup. We had a couple of exhibition games, but I think the first one was when I was 16, and I went with the national team, and we had a friendly against Portugal at the varsity stadium, and I came on late and I assisted Paul Stelteri's goal, funny enough. And I think after that, they're like, wait, who is this kid? And then Lynx picked me up right after that, and I had a good year. So going into the youth under 20s was pretty much, I pretty much solidified myself on that team. And Bruce Twalmley was a big mentor for me, a guy that took me under his wing. A lot of people don't realize at that time, Canada funding wasn't really big. So a lot of these things, sometimes we were asked to pay some of the flight and stuff like that. And my parents didn't. My parent didn't have the resource to make that happen. And Bruce Twalmley would take me under his wing, and I would stay with him in his place in Vancouver. And really was a great mentor for me and a lot of us kids, coming from these environments. And he stood at the forefront for us a lot of times, and made sure that, we got the Umbro boots and we got, proper gear. So, we look presentable when we got on the pitch.
What did he teach you?
Who, Bruce?
Yeah.
Oh man, Bruce taught me so much. I mean, he taught me how to be resilient. He taught me, competition, at the next level. He taught me what it was to be a pro. He taught me the game within the game, the psychological part of the game, leadership. I don't think, the power of team and belief, and also standing up for what you believe in. I've seen him stand up for us many times throughout our under 20s, going into the Olympics against the CSA, and saying, listen, if these guys don't, get their just what they deserve and proper equipment and, that, he took a stand for us and demanded the CSA to acknowledge what we were doing, because at that time, I think we were the most successful Canadian youth team under 20. We lost we made it out of our group stage. We had Argentina, Hungary, Australia in our group. We made it out of that stage. And then to lose against Spain we were doing things that, Canada hasn't seen in a long time, and going in the final stage of the Olympic qualifying matches. So he was definitely a great mentor, a great teacher, and so he took me to Barcelona when Bobby Robinson was the coach. He really took me under his wing as a mentor, as a coach. So I have a lot of respect for that man.
And what were your first experiences with taking this thing like professional? Like you were saying, this is what I'm going to do for a living, and now you're here, you're at the forefront. What was that like?
That was when I was 15, when I went to AC Milan, I think, and that whole experience, having the opportunity to be alongside, Edgar Davids, George Weah at that time, Desai, all those, world class footballers. But when I went down there, I was just a street kid. I can't sugarcoat it. I was hanging out on the street. I was, that was my family, that was my friends. So when I left that environment, and soccer was my saving grace, that kept me grounded. But and I used that sports as a platform for me to release a lot of my frustrations and struggles I was going through in my personal life. But when I went to Italy, I wasn't ready for that professional world. That discipline, you got to wake up at this time, you got to train at this time, the language barrier, the culture barrier. And they're not like, Canadians, we love you, welcome. It was like, I was on my own. They didn't welcome me into the team because, at that time I was like, these guys don't want me here, but not knowing that that's part of the process. So if I had someone to be there with me, to guide me or mentor me along that process, who knows what would have happened. But at the end of the day, they offered me a 5-year contract that I turned down because I wasn't ready to make that step. I was a little scared, to be honest, to commit 5 years of my life. I thought it was like eternity, and if I had the social media that we had today, it would have been great, but I didn't have no access of calling my parents, didn't have money to send. I had a phone card that, Milan would put money on every now and then to make calls. But I think at that time really, really showed me the level of professionalism and the professional world. And then when I did come back, I was like, oh man, what did I just do? Right? Because then you're getting back into the old habits. People are hanging out. And when you see that world and you experience, going to, see Milan play, going to Milanero, going, in that culture and just embracing that pro culture. And then you come back and dudes are just hanging out, smoking, drinking on the block, whatever the case is. It's just like, in my mind, I'm just like, this is not what I want for my life. This is not what I want, because I didn't see the end result really working out well for me. So at that time, I think I said, listen, it's either I take this football thing to the next level and I take it serious, or I just be a street kid and that's it. So it's either or. And I made the decision to pursue football, and that's when I really started to go after my dream. And like I said, when I got turned down from the provincial program, that's when I really started to go after my craft.
How did you shift? How did you shift? Because that's a big, I mean, I've had some shifts like that in my life where you realize you're not going down the right path and you have to make a decision to take another path. How did that shift for you? And how did that shift mentally too? Because that, to me, that's where the shift starts, right?
Yeah, it was a gradual process. I think there was many instances that happened that was in my life that was life-threatening, that was very dangerous, in terms of trouble, life trouble. And then I realized, my friends were going to jail, this was happening, this guy was having a baby. So when I started to see all that, I was just like, and here I have a craft and people are praising me and sending me to all these places and paying for me to travel to play football. That's when I think, and having good mentors, and being willing to listen and finally just humble myself as a kid and stop and, not think I know it all, and just be open to listen and take responsibility for my actions and take ownership for my actions, and realize, hey, look myself in the mirror and say, listen, you have an ability to do something amazing with your life, but you're right now you're throwing it away. So why would you gamble on that? Why not gamble on your ability to become maybe, something out of take sports and take it to the next level, instead of staying here and getting comfortable living on the, being on the street and hustling and doing this and doing that. There's no need for it. And I think at that time I kind of changed my life, and I started to get into a little more conscious lifestyle, started to read more, started to the level of the content of my music started to change, started to listen more positive music. I started growing my hair. So I think that, I really was indulging in the Rastafarian faith at that time, changing my eating habits, and just all around just trying to be the best person I can be. And I think that's when really I started to make more positive changes in my life and start to open up my mind and be more of a humble person, instead of, this rebellious street kid that knows it all. And, forget you guys don't understand me. Forget this coach, he doesn't like me, and instead of taking those challenges and use them for fuel to light my fire.
And is that where the plant-based diet kind of came into effect? Is that the birth of that?
That's right. That's right. And, I was lactose intolerant before that. So, I used to be one of those kids that, cut the milk bags back in the days and just drink those bags. And then I used to suffer with some serious, stomach pains and mucus and stuff like that. And my brother's the one that said, you might be lactose intolerant. And sure enough, I was. So we started to apply soy at the time, because we didn't, there wasn't Whole Foods back then. There was like one mom and pop's corner store, in the middle of Scarborough, that we had to go to get the soya milk. And then, obviously with being lactose intolerant, you have to be mindful of, when you start reading products now, and then you're reading products and you're like looking at ingredients. I'm like, wait, what's that? What's this? And so I started to question things and started to read up more. And then that's when I started to turn into a more vegan diet. And my brothers used to work at McDonald's at the time. And they came home one day and they said, we're not eating meat no more. I'm done with this. And I'm like, whoa, hold on. What? wait, what's going on here? Slow down. So what we're doing what? And they just came in like as rebels without a pause. They came and just got rid of all the meat. My poor aunt at the time who raised us, she was cussing, saying, "You guys not throw away my meat. I know how hard I work for that." And then, so we had to come to compromise. There's a big uproar in the house, because my brother like, "No, you don't understand. This is not good for you." So we stopped eating meat, and of course they were my older brothers, and at that time we were raising ourselves, really cooking for ourselves. So that's when I started to also get into a little bit of culinary stuff, because you had to fend for yourself at that time. So that's when we started to realize different options and non-meat options, and get into it more. But we were very limited because you didn't have all the access that you have today.
Yeah, for sure. And then now bring us into the beginnings of the MLS and your participation in soccer in Canada, really.
With soccer in Canada, you mean?
Yeah, just the growth of MLS. You know, so, Canada has you know, always been you know, the baseball, hockey, you know, football, the real football, you know, kind of a place, and now soccer's all of a sudden.
Oh, wait a second! Did you just say the real football? He's a football player.
Whoa! The real football.
Hold on a second. Hold on a second. You got 2 against 1.
I caught that too. I was like, whoa, hold on. The real football with the hand, that's a real, okay. The real football with the hand.
That's right. The one where you use your hands, the real one.
You got the wrong people here to be saying that. You got the wrong people here.
I had to say, I had to represent a little bit, you know.
I hear you, no problem. But so in '95, when we got word that America was putting on a professional league, I think that was when everyone started to open their eyes, like, wow, what's going on over there, right? Because, you know, we NASL, the Blizzards and stuff like that. You know, I was still a young kid. I would go out to the game every now and then. Of course, like I said, we were in metro housing, so we didn't have a lot of money to pay, you know, 3 kids to pay for a ticket to go see the Blizzards. So I remember going there like a very few times, right? And then there was nothing after that. So in 95 or 94, the Toronto Lynx came around. And that's when I signed at 16 with the Toronto Lynx. And then 95, we all heard that there was a pro team coming to America, MLS. And it was big news. It was all exciting news. And I think at that time, it was U20. And then I went to Germany to pursue my professional career, signed in Germany. But I always had my eye open on this MLS thing that's starting up. And, you know, when I saw it in 96, you know, they were getting good crowd. They had guys like Echeverry there. They had guys like, oh man, what's his name? The Colombian. He'll come to me.
Oh, I know who you're talking about. Big
Valderrama. You know, so, you know, Jaime Moreno, De Sarce, you know, players that, you know, I admired and watched, and, you know, just watching the development of that league. And, you know, when I was in Germany, of course, that was Europe was the place, right, to pursue your professional career. But when things didn't start to work out in Germany for me, in East Germany, I came back. I was kind of in limbo. I was with Jason Bent, and Jason Bent went straight to Colorado because he played in college. He was at college. So in the U.S. market, they knew of him. And when he went to Colorado, I was like, you know, great, you know, good for you. So I was kind of came back and I was in limbo, and then went to I didn't want to sign with the Canadian team because I wanted to be in the U.S. market because I felt I had a better chance to be seen in the U.S. market. And I was kind of jaded with Europe, my European experience. So Richmond called me, and at the time the club in Germany would still had money for me that they paid for me, but that's another whole long story with all that stuff. But I decided, okay, you know, let me go to Richmond and just see what it's like. I had no idea about Richmond, didn't even look up the team, nothing. But I said it's in the States. I saw they had affiliation with DC United, which DC United was the top of the pyramid in terms of MLS at that time, back-to-back champions and whatnot. So the opportunity presented itself, and I decided, okay, go. And when I got there, I saw people like, you know, world international players, and Andy Lowe, Gary Glasgow, you know, Gregory Messam, Jamaican national team, Trinidadian national team, U.S. national team players, and Marco Ferruzzi, and these players. I was like, whoa, this is a legit team, you know, and you know, they were doing things right, you know, everything was, you know, very professional, nice training grounds. And so I said, all right, I went there, you know, did enough to showcase myself, and they wanted to sign me a contract. And I saw the contract, and it was a decent contract at the time. And I was like, okay, US dollars? And they're like, yeah. So I said, okay, fine. I decided to sign the contracts with my mind thinking, okay, this is great. This is going to be a platform for me to get to the MLS. And thankfully, I decided I did follow my heart, and I was able to go on trial with DC the following year, DC United, and Frank Yallop was the assistant coach. during that trial process, Frank got wind that, you know, San Jose Earthquakes was looking for a job at the time. Thomas Rognan, which is a big reporter now, he was the coach of DC United. He wanted to sign me for DC, but Frank said, "Listen, hold on, because I'm getting this job at San Jose, and I would like you to be our first player." You know, and I was just like, man, you know, DC club, the history of DC, you know, but Frank is a guy who was my roommate when I talked about that first call up for Portugal. He was actually my roommate. I don't know how that worked out for in that game. So I was like, you know what? Frank is Canadian. He's a guy that, you know, I felt like I could trust, and he would take me under his wing as a fellow Canadian. So I'd take my gamble with Frank Yallop. And sure enough, he got the head coaching job, and I signed with him a month later. And the rest is history.
Important was it for you to have, just looking at my career, and I know the most impactful moments I've had are because I've had coaches that truly believed in me. How important was it to have that at that level, to have somebody truly believe in you? For me, that would add so much confidence.
Yeah, huge, because for one, I think Frank understood me because of our experience with the national team with Bob and Dude. So he understood my upbringing. He understood that, you know, my love for the game, my passion for the game. He understood that how much it meant to not only my family, because he met my dad, my brothers at the time. And, you know, so I think, and of course, him stepping into being a new coach, it was under a lot of pressure, because at that time we were stacked. I mean, Landon just signed. So, you know, Frank was under a lot of pressure with Landon Donovan, the golden boy of US soccer. And then you have me there as the up and coming, you know, star for Canada, right? So, but he pulled me aside. I remember as it was yesterday, he pulled me aside. He goes, "Dio, listen, you got to be patient with me this year. I know you want to play. I know you're a fiery kid. I know you play with a lot of passion, but I need you to control it, because, you know, I got to play this guy, you know." And at first I was like, you know, come on, Frank, give me you know, just, you know, let me go. He goes, "Dio, you don't understand. Like, I have Ronald Cerritos. He's a club legend at the time. And I have this kid, you know, I gotta work you in somehow, but just be patient." Right. And because he pulled me on, you know, told me that, I had a lot of respect for him. So I would, you know, bite my tongue, sit on the bench. But as soon as, you know, I knew my time was to get in there, I was like, I'm going on and I'm going to score, and I'm going to make your coaching job a nightmare with me. And he would call me in the locker room and goes, "Man, you're making my life very difficult right now, because every time you go on the field, you're scoring or creating goals." And now the fans are like, "Who is this guy? You know, why was he not playing more?" So, you know, during our journey to MLS, you know, he was playing me, getting a little bit more minutes. And then the cup final, he's like, "Dio, I just want you to be ready, because, you know, you'll get your chance. You'll get your chance, you know." And then, of course, in 2001, that was the golden goal for MLS Cup. But you're right. I think his constant dialogue with me helped. You know, he was a true manager, that he managed everybody in the locker room. He was a guy that, you know, if we performed, he would give us the world. Like, "Don't worry, guys, we'll come in and we'll just say, okay, let's play soccer, baseball." But when we lost, it was like, he was hard nosed. So he understood the balance, and I think the players really fed off it. We had big personalities. We had, you know, Jeff Agus, captain of the U.S. national team, Manny Lagos, Troy Dyack, Ronnie Eklund, who just came from Barcelona. So we had a good mix of experience and hungry youth that wanted to showcase and prove themselves. And, you know, obviously Landon had a fantastic year, so I don't think he didn't. It's not like he didn't deserve to start, but, you know, any guy that he put in at that time, you know, Ramiro Corrales, myself, you know, it was always like, you know, we'd always push each other to improve, and he created a great environment for that. Every training session was very competitive, super competitive.
And now, Daddy Dero, right? So you're playing throughout this time, but you also have children, right?
Yep.
And how was that balancing the both those things? What is the age range of your kids? You have 4 kids, right?
Yeah. So my daughter is 22. My son is 18. My other son is 15, and then 8.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Good spread.
Yeah.
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 So the two oldest, obviously, that was, you know, you're in your career with these young kids.
Yes. So for me, I don't want no people take this around me, but for me, it was the best decision I made, because it kept me grounded. Right. I didn't have time to party. I didn't have time to hang out with the guys. I just got married, you know, so experiencing that dynamics of marriage and having someone in your life. But, you know, it definitely kept me grounded. You know, it kept me focused. I wasn't playing for just myself anymore. I was playing for, you know, my family and you know, to provide. I was playing as a provider, you know, so it wasn't no more me and my passion. It was more so, okay, you know what, I gotta provide for my kids. I gotta work hard this year so I, you know, get a better contract. I gotta, you know, and then of course, you know, that was the drive.
Yeah. And go ahead, Helen.
I was gonna say, who in your career would you pick as the toughest player you've played against?
Like all throughout my whole career.
Yeah, let's do whole career.
I would say Rafa Marquez from Mexico, because, you know, obviously the Mexican battles have always been tough, and then MLS playing against him, he always stands up because he was dirty as well. He was very, very dirty defender. You know, sometimes those Mexicans can get real dirty off the ball, you know, step on your Achilles, step on your feet, jab you in the back, elbow you in the back, you know, elbow you in the head when they jump in for headers. So, but he's actually my teammate when I went to New York too. So, you know, Rafa Marquez played for Barcelona, you know, great career, but he definitely stands out as one of my toughest players, because not only was he dirty, but he was so clean on the ball. He was like, he would get me so frustrated because there's times like, you know, he would act like he's gonna kick it down the wing and cut you like a forward would. I'm just like, what? You know, and then when you pressure him, he was always so calm. Like he was always just like a world-class player. And he's definitely, you know, one of the toughest players I played against. But, you know, at that time, MLS had defenders were very tough. It was a tough league. Like you know, you didn't get all the calls that you got today. You know, it was a very, very physical league. So there's a lot. Eddie Pope would be up there too. Eddie Pope was a very, you know, very clean, knew the game, read the game, read 2-3 plays before it happened, always in the right place. He was definitely a quality defender.
Was there something that surprised you? So I remember I was playing against Italy in one of my first national team games, and I remember them grabbing me and having that experience of never having experienced anything like that. In places that you should not be grabbed. Were there moments like that? Because I mean, I'm this little naive player that's, you know, played in Canada, and, you know, we play hard, but we don't do kind of creative things like that.
I have an Italian story.
Okay.
So Ivor Wynn in Vancouver. So we had and, you know, for people who don't know, Ivor was a Canadian, like a national team stadium, which was really not a stadium. It was like one side was stands and then the other side was just, it was like a little small bleachers. But anyway, we played Italy. I want to say it was under 23 team. We played against Italy there. And during the game, a player was like, you know, I was feeling myself that game. So I was dancing on the ball, you know, like, you know, enjoying it. You know, doing my thing. And then one of the players, you know, came after me dirty. And I think I nutmegged him, and he did one of those. He grabbed my shirt and pulled me down, right? And I'm there laughing, and he's jogging back, and I'm just laughing. I'm like, dude, you're not gonna stop me today. And he spit on me. I'm like, and I just remember I lost it, right? And I'm looking at my chest and I'm seeing like spit. I just walked up to him and decked him right in the face. Boom. And then all the players ran on, like, you know, obviously a big scuffle happened, and Bruce Tommy was the coach, and while, you know, obviously the coach gave me a red card, and at halftime he comes in and he's yelling at me, he's giving it to me. Dero, this is how you do? I go, coach, honestly, I'd say I'm sorry to everyone, but nobody's spitting on me. I don't care where. Nobody's gonna spit on me, and that's just. And he's like, if you want to play for, you better get used to. You better get used to guys grabbing your thing. You got to get used to guys spitting on me. And I've experienced pea bag getting thrown at us in Mexico and all that stuff like that. But when they spit on me, I was like, dude, that's. But as to your point, right? That was my first real experience of they'll go the whole 9 yards, whatever it takes to throw you out the game. And it was a tactic that worked, and we had to play a man down. And I'm sitting in the fans, stands thinking, damn, what'd you do? What'd you do? Because I let my team down for the thing. But in my mind, I'm thinking, man, but the dude spit at me. But I'm like, now I'm sitting down out the game, so it was a real. That was a tough one, and I've experienced a couple of experiences like that throughout my career, and especially playing against sometimes those Central American teams, they tend to do nasty stuff like grab your package and like, dude, what, like, come on, man, what you doing, dude? Like, you come from the street, let's fight, like you're fighting, right? But you have to control it because you're representing your national team, and you got to realize these guys are doing everything because this is their livelihood depends on this. And just like my livelihood depended on it, and I couldn't afford to sit on a World Cup qualifier or a game of that importance because of my personal stuff, and that was a big thing I had to overcome going into the professional world.
And for the non-football people out there, the non-soccer people who only know big names, what was it like playing with David Beckham?
It was great. I mean, again, for me, it was always like, look at me, look at me. I'm Canadian, and we got talent here. Mm-hmm. My first experience with that is in AC Milan again when I was using the men's room, and Edgar Davids came up beside me, said, hey, you're, said my name. And he goes, you're a kid from Canada, and I was like, what, Edgar David? He knows me. And then lo and behold, his next sentence was, what do they want with a Canadian at Milan? He goes, like a real, Dutch guy. What do they want with? But it put things in perspective for me in terms of how we're perceived globally. Like, oh, you're not a soccer country. You have no business playing soccer. Canadians play soccer. So I always felt like I was out to prove that we can play soccer, and we do have kids that love the game and are passionate about the game, but also could play a good brand of soccer, that we weren't just a kick and run country. We weren't just a tall, country that just battles and gets stuck in. And we have those players too, but we also have players that could play with flair and understood that game. So when I of course I was able to play with Beckham, it was always like, that respect factor, of course, in terms of what he accomplished in his career. But I wasn't sitting down being a fan. I was out there to prove to him, like, hey, I'm just as good, having to play with him for a couple All-Star games and getting to know him, obviously his class is his class. He's a gentleman on the field. He's a gentleman off the field. His knowledge of the game, and Beckham's another guy. Like, when you look at his game, he's not the flashiest player. He's not a Ronaldinho. He's not, but he stuck to what he did, and that's his ability to pick out corners, to pick out passes, and he mastered that. And he would tell me, Dito, I used to stay and practice every time. What is English? I practice day in, day out, and I would have balls, like bag of balls, and just pick out, put things up, like on the goalpost, and just try to hit targets, ball after ball after ball. And obviously it paid off for him, right? But to have the opportunity to play against a world-class player, international superstar like that is obviously a special moment.
Yeah, it's funny because I know a lot of people would comment on the fact that he's not flashy, but I would always turn to them and say, how many times does he lose possession of the ball?
Right.
He doesn't have to do anything flashy, but he doesn't lose possession of the ball. And
he's clean. He's so clean.
So clean. Who would you say, was there a player you played with that really elevated your game?
Yeah, you know what? Every player elevated my game. I was very fortunate and blessed to be in championship winning teams. So guys like, A Goose and Troy, Dayak, guys that took me under the wing and really pushed me, and created a professional Landon, playing with Landon, competing for each other's spots. Every day at training, you had to bring it because you're fighting for starting positions, right? And, Brian Ching, playing with guys like that. And then, of course, playing with guys like Thierry Henry, in New York, and, legend in the game, and seeing his attitude on his competitiveness, is just to the next level. And, that's why we got along so well in such a short time, because, we're both fierce competitors. Anything we did, we wanted to win. Even in training, if it was running from here today, we would stay after training for hours, play two touch, like literally hours, and we would be cussing each other. No, you touch with your thigh, no heads, no thigh, right? Two touch. And we would stay and go. And it was those moments that you look at and say, wow, those were special moments, because everybody else is eating, everybody else is on their way home, and we're still on the pitch, and the coach like, okay guys, come off. I'm like, and of course I left it to him, because there ain't nobody can tell him no. so I said, Henry wants me to stay with him, so I gotta stay. But but again, playing with guys, even on national team, the competitiveness of wanting to try to help the national program make a World Cup was an inspiration for me to always bring my A game every time, and try to be the best leader as possible.
And how did you prepare to bring that A game, before games? What did you have any rituals? What did you do to get your mind right? Definitely.
My whole ritual started after the game before. So if I knew the game was Saturday, or it didn't matter, after every game, I had a ritual. Do my ice baths, take care of myself, because I know the next game is coming. So, eating right, resting right, taking care of my body. The day before, I would, day of the game, I wouldn't talk to anybody. So I'd turn off my phone. Even my kids knew they couldn't come to my room, stay away from dad, because that was an opportunity for me to get in my zone. I would meditate. I would just kind of visualize, more visualization stuff in the game, things I wanted to do in the game, things that I didn't do last game, or I couldn't improve on last game. I would just, be visually, scoring goals, visually making certain plays. And, of course, eat. I would rest all day. I wouldn't be like one of those guys that I would rest. I would put my feet up and just rest, because I knew once I go into that stadium, there's just so much demand, right? There's media that want you. And that's one thing that media always used to get angry with, because I refused to do any media before a game. Because I just think psychologically, I didn't want them to throw me off. I didn't want them to get into my head. And, so I didn't do that. ESPN, all these NBC, I refused. I didn't want to do I said, listen, if they want to ask me after the game. Nothing before the game. And I was adamant about that. As well as, I'd wear a new shoes every game, because I just love the fact of feeling like a kid again, of getting that new shoes and putting on the new shoes, and that feeling of that new shoes. And I just felt like, what, that was my cape, kind of, that was like, okay, business time now. And every time I wouldn't let nobody touch my shoes, right? I would put it in the heater, right? I put it in a plastic bag and put it under, maybe if you didn't have heater, I put it under hot water, let hot water run it just to soften the leather. And then once I put it on, it was business. So those are kind of my rituals I would do.
What would you say, looking at your career, is there a moment that stands out?
Yeah, there's thankfully, I'm grateful. There's a few. Obviously, my first call up when I was 16 to Canada. For me, I think that was a huge turning point in my career, because it gave me a platform to showcase my talent on an international level, and guys I looked up to, Pesciolito, Alex Bunbury, Randy Samuels, Jeff Onger, Frank Yallop, guys that I watched on TV. Like, these guys are playing for Canada. That's the ultimate. For me, that was the ultimate, right? And so that was a special moment. And of course, my first contract, my first professional contract in Germany, winning MLS Cup, winning the Gold Cup with Canada. Those definitely, all my MLS cups are all special moments. But you know, it's a different feeling when you put on that Canada jersey, you know, and the anthem's playing, and you just feel like the whole country is with you. Every time you do that, it's a special moment. You know, when you go in that locker room and, you know, you get that feeling. It's a qualifier, and you know, it's those are moments that, you know, that are just special. Every time you go in there, you know, it's a special moment.
And now from MLS Ambassador standpoint, how do you see, you know, soccer in Canada? Are we on our way? Are we proving ourselves? Is this the best it's ever been?
I see two parts of it. I think at the professional level, I think for the development part, in terms of going to semi-pro with the CPL now coming on board, MLS, I think it's fantastic. I think it's definitely the best it's ever been, because now we have academies and now we have infrastructures in place where kids could, you know, play and be amongst professionals, that they idolize, and, you know, be in the same building and the facility of them and see them on a daily basis, walk by or whatever the case is. But just not only that, just have a badge that means something, you know, hey, if I continue, I can play with this guy one day, or I can make a living out of this. But in terms of the grassroots, I'm still, you know, having my own academy and stuff. I'm still having a hard time with the pay-to-play model, and it being, you know, too expensive, and there's a lot of requirements in place that it makes it very difficult to survive in these environments, you know. So I think at the grassroots level, I think it's very difficult. It's still difficult because a lot of people are utilizing now soccer as a means of making good income, you know, and maybe don't have the best intention for the game. It's more of a business now. And I think at the grassroots level, it's got to be about development. It's got to be about grassroots. It's got to be, because I look back at my father and, you know, the coaches around that time, how much time they dedicated to the growth, and they did it through passion and love of the game. And they were taking, you know, track runners, they were taking all different kids from different, you know, abilities and teaching them the game. Where now is, I think it forces almost coaches to poach more and try to, you know, get a team, and now they want to hold on to players to say, yeah, we won this tournament, that tournament, and use that to get more players instead of, you know, letting loose of those players and let them go into an environment like a TFC, like a Montreal Impact, like Vancouver, and all these environments where they can excel their game and take it to the next level. So I hope that answered your question.
No, it did. And, you know, is there anything that you think can be done, or is this one of those situations like hockey where that's just the direction it's gone into, where if you don't have any money, you're going to have a harder time?
Yeah, it's unfortunate because there's a couple of things that I think that, you know, needs to be questioned is also the competitive side of nature of the game. I think we've now put all kids in one bucket where it's all fun, fair, positive. And I think there's kids that want to compete, and I think there should be an environment for those kids that want to compete and take their game to the next level, because you know, to understand competition, understand winning and losing, that's just life. And I think kids need to understand, hey, you lost, it's okay, but, you know, it's not how it's addressed. So I think we need to do a better job of developing the coaches and understand the parents of understanding, you know, competitiveness and winning and losing. It's okay. It's actually good for kids to understand the importance of winning and losing at a young age, right? To understand, okay, listen, you lost, but you also won if you could take that loss and better yourself and get back to train and work a little harder. But now we have kids coming up saying, oh, you lost. Okay, so, well, losing doesn't matter. It's not about losing. I'm like, no, life is understanding winning and losing. It does matter. Like, you know, it does matter if it's taught in a very constructive way, right? Because then now you're going to think everything is, it doesn't matter. Who cares? And then you get that attitude. And now, especially now at the national level, now we're bringing in kids that don't understand that competitiveness. We're going to Central America for a World Cup qualifier where kids that this is their life. This is like, it means everything for them. This is their only way out. So they're on that field and they're fighting for their life. and we're a little bit timid, like, whoa, and we're a little culture shocked from this, and we're miles behind. So I think you know, in those environments, I think it needs to be addressed. I think we need to get more people like, you know, Helen and football minded people leading soccer in this country. I don't think we still are way behind in terms of that. You know, there's a lot of players that have done so much in their career that are nowhere to be found in any level of football in this country in terms of the governing bodies that govern this game. And I think we need to do a big, you know, look in the mirror and say, okay, you know what, Stalteri, you won a Bundesliga, or you play for Canada. How can you help with our national program? What can you do to get involved? Jason Bent, obviously he's with TFC, but you know, there's so many players. Bunbury's, Pescadito is doing stuff in England, and you know, even me, I've retired and no one's reached out to me on the national team to ask me anything. You know, how can you help? And I'm the leading scorer. You know what I mean? And it just baffles me where I look across the border and I see at the U.S. You know, they have their players coaching MLS teams, GMs of MLS teams, managers of MLS teams, development of youth soccer in U.S. You know, president, and it's just, you know, there must.
That's a whole conversation we can get into, because I will tell you, everybody that I played with, I mean, that literally could be a whole conversation. I know one person that's from my national team that's involved. And
same here. I know one person too. And
that's, to me, it's a disgrace. And that's sad that you have all these players that have played for the country, yet have no role in supporting the sport in their country, nor are they, like you said, I mean, when the 2015 Women's World Cup came here, they didn't reach out to any of the women's players to participate and be ambassadors for the game. I sent them a note wanting to be a volunteer in Dues Media, and I got a thank you as a return email, and that was it. So, I mean, I think it's you got to start with your history, and you got to support those players that have actually put in the blood, sweat, and tears and lost. You know, injury wise, you know, for me personally, knee injury with a knee replacement and at a young age. Well. No, I just think you got to look at your players first, and that's not being done. And I agree with you. I think so much is now financial, and there's if it was me playing now, there's absolutely no way I would make it to the national team, because I wouldn't have been able to afford what needs to be done now to play on the national team. I wouldn't have been able to train and leave my club here and play, you know, in a whatever I don't even know what their name is, but I know I couldn't afford it. I couldn't afford it, so I probably wouldn't have made it.
And that's exactly what I told the OSA too. And here I am trying to give back, trying to make it cost efficient to help kids in the similar environments that I grew up in, and there's zero to no support really. And you know, I don't get it. I'm ambassador for TFC, and thankfully for TFC that organization has took me and has valued what I've done in my career and saw it useful to be a community ambassador for them. But if they weren't around, I don't know. I mean, we have dentists and doctors and making decisions on Canadian soccer, where we have full-grown guys who play at the highest level possible, you know, coaching U15s or U12s. And it's like, what? Well, and don't get me wrong, there's a space for that, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot more they can provide for the development of the game. You look at it, all the biggest clubs in the world, they all have players, you know, as ambassadors, as travel with the team, and even with the national programs that they're involved. They create an environment for them. So those are things I think that definitely need to be addressed and really taken a close look at.
And you're what I love. I mean, let's talk a little bit about kind of you're trying to help this problem, and it's kind of keeping the legacy of your dad alive, right?
Yes.
So like
100%. Share
that a little bit, because I think that's just amazing that you've taken something your dad instilled in you and now you're recreating it.
Yeah, it started in 2007, 2008. I've started to travel to inner city communities across North America as well as the Caribbean through my DERO Foundation program, putting on free soccer camps and clinics where we use soccer or football as the platform, the real football with the foot, football as a we use football because everybody outside the world besides North America calls it football, but we use football as the driving force. But we also teach health and nutrition and financial literacy in these programs, because one thing growing up in metro housing community, these are the things that I thought was a big roadblock in our communities. Understanding the value of money, even though you don't have a lot, is understanding savings and putting aside your money. You're putting aside your money, and of course, health and nutrition. Growing up in these environments where a lot of times we're full with, variety store, grocery store, sugars and sweet canned goods and stuff like that. So really understanding the importance of fruits and vegetables and nutritional value. So something my dad is not into nutrition, by the way, but Garris is so but something that I do that. And like you said, just giving back to underserved communities. And I really enjoyed it. I did that from 2007 to 2012, where I fully funded all my camps, all my staff, and was a big strain financially. And then I realized, okay, I gotta do this properly in terms of, get donors and create, go through the TCF, the Toronto Community Fund, and work with an organization that can help me in terms of, generating revenue so we can do programs. So in 2009, when I came back to Toronto, I realized there was a big need for after school programs, because this is the time where a lot of the sports programs in schools were getting cut. I was a product of after school programming. You drop in nights, you pick up games after school and stuff like that. And I realized that there was a big lack of that in these communities. So I decided to start my own after school programs for inner city kids. We worked in various places in predominantly in Scarborough, and we started to do after school programs for inner city kids, especially coming from a single parent upbringing. After school is definitely a vulnerable time for a lot of these kids that have no parents, have no mentors, and they're going home and they're just end up hanging out on the streets, doing drugs, doing things that are not consistent towards their upbringing. And so we found a great success with our after school program. So that's what I'm doing through my Dero Foundation to date. And something I take great pride in, as well as I have my Dero Academy, my Dero United Academy, to help give back to the game that has provided me so much, and provide opportunities for these kids, teach them the game, teach, and we actually have now a relationship with Toronto FC, where we have 12 of our kids now, a part of the TFC program.
Awesome.
And that's the goal. That's the goal for me, is to create pathways for these kids. First, like I've always said, I'm not really interested, believe it or not, of creating footballers. My interest is creating young men and young women that understand the fundamentals. And that's not the game. That's respect, discipline, and character, right? And self-belief. I think once you teach those components, I think the athletics part of it will come in, because the end of the day is not all of them are going to be professionals, even though they all, how many of you guys going to want to be professional? All hands go up. But at the end of the day, we know the reality. It's a very few, it's a select few. But if I could be like my dad, as you mentioned, and walk down the street and be like, hey, Coach Tony, man, I just want to thank you. You changed my life. That's for me is a success story in itself.
So you have a quote here that I really like. It says, leaving my mark is not what I do, it is what I am. And that was something that you had put on Facebook. So is that what you're talking about? Is that the mark that you're talking about?
Definitely 100%. Because, all my success and my accolades was from the players that I played with, from my parents, my community. They're the ones that really wanted as hello.
Yep.
Yeah, we're here.
Wanted as much as I did. So all my success was never for me, because it took someone to give me encourage. It took a gentleman like Dave Sadu from GS United to take me under his wing when I was really in some financial struggles, to help me out, to help my family too, and really take me a lot of us under our wing when our team dissembled. So, it's not what it's not so much the accolades, it's what are you doing for your community and how are you giving back. And I think that's the most important thing.
Another thing you talk a lot about is on your Facebook is enlightenment. What does that mean to you?
Just enlightenment, I think, is just understanding self-belief, self-worth, self-value. Regardless of what your situation is, I think you got to realize that you have a place, you have a voice, and you have a purpose. It's up for you to seek that purpose and go after that purpose. I think we're living in a very fortunate time where we have a lot of access to technology, but I think one thing we can't do is let technology take us away from who we are as people and as individuals, and spend time with each other and understand, yourself, get to know yourself. A lot of times, we create this image that we want people to see through our social media, but are you living it? Are you being about it? And I think that's where, I always try to encourage kids, because especially kids, they don't, they go through so many things, so many obstacles, and of course you have those that get it and they're self-driven, self-motivated, but the majority of kids aren't. They have, obstacles in their way, personal obstacles that they have to overcome. And I just want to keep encouraging them to keep going after your dream, because, I was one of the kids that, I got cut, I went through trials, struggles, just like everybody else. And if you watch The Last Dance and watch a person who's arguably one of the greatest athletes ever, Michael Jordan, in terms of his experience, he got cut too. He got cut from his high school team, but what separated him from the rest was his work rate, his desire to be better, his desire to be accepted, because his dad didn't really even favor him. He favored his older brother. So that story in itself is motivating, and I use those experiences to motivate and try to enlighten the kids that follow me.
That's great. That's it's such a great way of thinking. And one of the main reasons we do these podcasts is to get people into the minds of people who think this way. And obviously backed by the Guelph Games, this is something that we created not only to have professional athletes, give them another opportunity to kind of get back in the game and in a fun environment, but also get people who've never thought that way, to give them the tools that they needed to be able to say, hey, here is an opportunity for you to, in a fun, non-judgmental, just a celebration of sport and mental health, for life, for you to be able to kind of come back in. So we love the fact that we're lucky enough to have people like you to kind of give us the insights on what it takes to be a champion, what it takes just to make it in life. I love that you said that you're not here to create footballers, but just to create successful people who have self-worth and are, what's the word I'm looking for? Self-aware. They're very self-aware of themselves, and you were lucky enough to have that at a young age. When's the last time you did the shake and bake?
Let's end on a happy note.
Man, last time it was 2015.
2015. So is there anything that'll ever happen where, even a business thing where you'll take it out of retirement?
Yeah, actually, no, I played I played with GS men's team. So I think I didn't do like the real shake and bake. I did more the shake and break. I think I hurt my back doing it. But I did like a little half thing. But it's not the same. When you, it's hard to just recreate that. It's in the moment type of thing. It's hard to just, a lot of people say, Dero, can you do shake and bake? I just feel awkward doing it. Like, I just feel like it's weird.
Yeah. You got to feel it.
Yeah. It's like telling someone, can you do your celebration now? It's like, I can't just recreate that passion and recreate that moment.
It's like catching the Holy Ghost. It's gotta be in the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So how about this next year, Guelph Games 2021, the Dero team is coming in.
Yes, and we spoke about that.
We did.
And, we know, unfortunately, that obviously to everything that that you guys couldn't execute that this year, but definitely looking forward to it the following year. I think it's a great thing that you guys are doing. I think especially in a place like Guelph, that's you know, you don't hear a lot about Guelph, you know, but I know that there is a lot of, you know, sports is big there, and I haven't indulged a lot into Guelph, so I don't know much about the landscape.
You'll be surprised. It's really nice.
And well, they have you there, so something must be going good, right? So you know, I'm looking forward to that experience, and kudos to you guys for creating that environment for as you mentioned, you know, a platform where people can get out and get active and, you know, release themselves. Because as we know, this is a tough time for us. We're open, we're outgoing, but for a lot of people that are inverts right now, that look forward to TFC matches, look forward to sports, look forward to their work, and, you know, as a socialized event to get out. It's a tough time for a lot of those individuals, so we're definitely thinking of them as well.
Well, thank you.
I have one final question.
One final thought.
Just I'm curious, you know. So you're Dero stuck on an island, you know, a deserted island, and you have two options. You can either have all of the unlimited music or unlimited selection of books. Which would you rather be? Which would you rather choose if you were stuck on a deserted island?
Wow.
These are the deep questions coming out.
That's right.
Yeah. That's a deep. I would say music.
Yeah, it's a tough one. That's such a tough one.
Music is like reading books.
Yeah, very emotion filled. I used to think that, you know, that I would think that you would want to control how you feel, and I know that music can get me into in an instant. But I love to read and I love to learn, and it could pass the time. So it's a tough one. I'm always curious to see which one people would choose.
It depends on the content that you're listening to, because music could be like reading, right? It's a lot of people's life experiences, and like you said, it definitely shifts your mood. You know, I mean, one thing I would say music, because I could rewind and fast forward, right? A book I have to actually read through to get to that point, right? So that's a tough one. And then again, it depends the kind of books, but you said any books. So
any books or any music, all available. But I find it so hard to answer that question. Okay. It's true. I don't know if life is worth living without music. Like if the music disappeared, I think that it would just change our
especially experience. Around this time. You see right now, there's so many Insta live DJs doing great things and giving back, and, you know, taking time out of their lives. Like I'm gonna touch on it, man. Babyface and you know, seeing that, you know, like when would you ever see that? When would I even see a Jizz and Premiere going on their production? Like, this is just classic moments. Lady Gaga doing a concert like that. I think it's you know, where people might not ever see that because of the price of a ticket to a concert, or to see that might be too much, and now you're seeing it for free. So you know, it's a great opportunity to listen to these people and see them do their craft, you know, at home.
I think that's one of the great things that is coming out of this COVID thing, is the birth of all of these things. Like, again, things that you'd never see ever. You know, Teddy Riley and Babyface going at it back and forth on the best music, and taking you back to that time. Yeah, you know, classics. Oh God, I love it. Well, that's great. Well, Dero, thank you very much for giving us the time. And back to leave you go back to making snacks, because I know I've got a lineup right here. I'm a
little concerned because, you know, when you have kids and the house is quiet, something's going on. So I don't know. I gotta check up on them.
Awesome. Thanks, Dero.
All right, guys. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Dero.